Hello, my dear students. I'm Dr. Vaishali Bharambe, and we are studying our midbrain series. Right? Today, we are going to study crus cerebri and substantia nigra. What is this? Let's understand. Okay. So now you're looking at the brainstem from posteriorly. You can cut the brainstem at two levels. One is the level of superior colliculi, one is a section through the inferior colliculi. Through these two sections, you can understand much of the functioning of the midbrain. Okay, so today we are going to take just a section of midbrain and understand it. As usual, I'm asking you to begin a diagram. Please take a nice drawing book or any digital drawing implement that you want, and let's start a diagram. Just remember, the substantia nigra and the crus cerebri are structures common to both sections. Inferior colliculi and superior colliculi both will have crus cerebri and substantia nigra. So understand them well. They're going to be used by you in both sections later. Right. So please draw this now. Come on. Draw it. This here in the center is the aqueduct of Sylvius. You remember aqueduct of Sylvius is the central cavity of midbrain. Okay. Throughout the midbrain, that's going to be a constant. Aqueduct of Sylvius. When you're drawing this diagram, you might feel that I may not get it bilaterally symmetrical. It's okay. A little bit here and there is all right. As you draw and you practice, you will start to get them correct. And those of you who are using digital implements, you already have ways in which you can draw bilaterally symmetrical diagrams. So you are not going to go wrong. Right. So if you've drawn this, let's add these two lines to them. Okay. Draw one a little bit in the front and another one a little bit behind. Remember to draw the distance between the two lines a little bigger medially and a lot narrower laterally. Also draw a circle, a somewhat like a circle around the central aqueduct of Sylvius. Have you drawn it? Okay. Taking this image to one corner, let's correct our drawing a little bit. This edge here has been modified to make it a little rough. Okay. Because a lot of fibers are passing through. This diagram will also do, but this one will be a little finer. So modify the edges to make them look like this. Modify this edge also to make it look like this, so that the fibers seem to be sort of blending into each other. See if you can do that. If you can't, this will also do. Okay? All right. So this is aqueduct of Sylvius. Let's draw a line through it. Okay? Everything posterior to it is called as tectum. Everything anterior to it is called as the cerebral peduncle. What is it called? Cerebral peduncle. Posteriorly, tectum. Okay. Now, let's color this zone here so that there are a lot of cells in the posterior region and a fewer cell in the anterior region. Just color it in that way. So the posterior region looks very dense, packed with cells, and the anterior region looks like a lesser number of cells. This is called as the substantia nigra. It looks black even in the actual section of midbrain. Black. Okay, very interesting. This is substantia nigra, and this bundle of fibers in front of it is the crus cerebri, which you have already discussed with me earlier, just its appearance. So, crus cerebri, substantia nigra. These are the two we are going to study today. This region behind them is called as tegmentum, and this region around the aqueduct is called periaqueductal gray. So, what all comes under cerebral peduncle? Crus cerebri, substantia nigra, tegmentum, and periaqueductal gray. All these come under the purview of cerebral peduncle. And what is situated behind this line here? Tectum of midbrain. Got it? These are parts of section of midbrain. Let's revise. Aqueduct of Sylvius, horizontal line, behind it tectum, in front of it cerebral peduncle. Color it a little darker. This dark colored region, in front of this is the crus cerebri, Dark colored region is called substantia nigra. Area behind it is called tectum. Area around the aqueduct is called periaqueductal gray. Have you got the parts well? Okay, right. We will now move on to the midbrain section. Basic structure. Just run through it once in your mind. Any section of midbrain will posteriorly be made up of tectum, anteriorly be made up of cerebral peduncle. Your cerebral peduncle is made up of tegmentum in front, which is consisting of periaqueductal gray and aqueduct of Sylvius. In front of it will lie substantia nigra. In front of that will lie the crus cerebri. Are you able to visualize this? Stop the video here. Look at this. Close your eyes. See if you can imagine tectum, tegmentum, periaqueductal gray, substantia nigra, crus cerebri. You should be able to see this much now in your mind. Yes? Okay. So let's study the crus cerebri and substantia nigra. First, let's focus on the crus cerebri. Okay. So this is what I want you to focus on. Correct? Okay. So now understand that crus cerebri are corticofugal fibers. Corticofugal. They are coming from the cortex downwards. Where are they going? They are taking origin from cortex. They are going to the other parts of brain or to the spinal cord. Corticofugal from the cortex. Clear? So now they are made up of three groups. Medial 1/6, middle 4/6 or 2/3, lateral 1/6. Look at it on the image now. Medial 1/6, middle 4/6, lateral 1/6. Easy? Very easy? Okay. So let's understand what are the fibers in it. In the middle 4/6 or 2/3, you have corticospinal and corticobulbar fibers. Corticospinal, corticobulbar fibers. We've done this earlier. You know it. Okay. I will revise it with you again. Don't worry. This is the middle 4/6. These are corticospinal and corticobulbar fibers passing through it. Okay. What are corticospinal fibers? What are corticobulbar? One last time revision. Okay. Fibers take origin from cerebral cortex, descend down through midbrain, pons, medulla in this manner, and continue down. These are corticospinal as they go into the spinal cord. Some fibers from this will stop at the level of brainstem. They can stimulate the midbrain, pons or medulla oblongata cranial nerves, and they are called corticobulbar. Bulb is the brainstem. Corticobulbar fibers. They will be stimulating the cranial nerves in midbrain, pons or medulla oblongata. Clear? So these are corticospinal and corticobulbar fibers, which are also sometimes called corticonuclear fibers, since they go to nuclei of cranial nerves. Okay? Right. So, what are the fibers contained in the medial 1/6 and the lateral 1/6? Let's understand. The medial 1/6 is made up of fibers which are frontopontine, going from your frontal lobe to the pons. Lateral 1/6 is made up of fibers which are occipitopontine, paritopontine, temporopontine. Okay, so basically from all four lobes of cerebral cortex, fibers are going to the pons. Frontal set of fibers are present in the medial 1/6 and all the others are present in the lateral 1/6. Clear? Why are they going to pons? What is going on? Why do all of them have to go to pons? Let's understand that. So orient yourself now to this very beautiful image. I'm really fond of this. I hope you enjoy this. Use it well. This is your cerebral cortex. This is the midbrain, pons, spinal cord, and so on. And here is your cerebellum. Note, cerebral cortex of the right side, cerebellum of the left side are the involved parties. Okay. So from the cerebral cortex, fibers descend down. These are corticopontine from the cortex to the pons. Reeling into pons, they go into the cerebellum, pontocerebellum. If you recall, I have taught you this. Corticopontocerebellum. Corticopontocerebellum. Why am I crossing my arms? Because the corticoponto of the right side went to the left side to relay. Corticopontocerebellar fibers. Okay. So this tract has finally relayed to the cerebellum whatever it is the cortex is planning. Whatever motor activity cortex is planning, it informs the cerebellum through these set of fibers. Accordingly, cerebellum will respond. Okay, but at this stage, we just need to know that every motor activity which is planned by the cerebral cortex is informed to the opposite side cerebellum through corticopontocerebellar fibers, out of which corticopontine are the fibers we are discussing today. Okay, so that is crus cerebri, medial 1/6 frontopontine, lateral 1/6 occipito-parieto-temporopontine, and middle 2/3 corticospinal and corticobulbar fibers. Is that clear? All are descending down. Let's now talk about the substantia nigra. Nigra, dark looking area in the midbrain. Okay, it looks dark in color and is called substantia nigra. The group, and these are group of neurons between the tegmentum here and the crus cerebri here. They are convex, they are situated in a convex manner, okay, with a frontal convexity, and medially they are much thicker. Remember I told you when you were drawing? So medially they are much thicker than the lateral placement of cells. This is the convexity you will encounter. The substantia nigra has two vaguely divided parts to it. A dorsal region which is made up of very compactly placed cells called pars compacta, and ventral region where the cells are very reticulated or far apart. Okay, so it looks a little lighter, called pars reticularis. So pars reticularis, pars compacta. Pars reticularis, pars compacta. Two parts of substantia nigra. So note that the pars reticularis fibers, this pars reticularis appears to be entering into the crus cerebri sometimes. That's why I told you to modify your diagram a little bit. So projects forward into the fiber bundles of crus cerebri. Let's learn a little bit about each of them. Pars compacta is a cell dense zone, very densely packed cells, high melanin content. Pars reticularis is a cell poor zone, high iron content. Some basics. Now we're going to learn about the connections. Okay, so note what we are looking at. This is your midbrain. This is the thalamus, caudate nucleus, lentiform nucleus, corpus striatum. Basically the corpus striatum. Okay, so what happens? Fibers from caudate nucleus and lentiform nucleus come to the pars reticularis. They are carrying the neurotransmitter GABA. They are by nature inhibitory to the substantia nigra. They suppress the activity of substantia nigra. These are called strio-nigral fibers. Why strio? Because they are corpus striatum. Corpus striatum to nigra. Strio-nigral fibers. Similarly, the pars compacta gives rise to fibers right back. Okay, so they go to caudate nucleus, they go to lentiform nucleus. They are high in dopamine. They contain dopamine, which is again inhibitory to the corpus striatum. It is inhibitory to these nuclei. Okay, these are called nigrostriate. From substantia nigra to the corpus striatum. Nigrostriate fibers. Okay. Note that some fibers also go to the thalamus. They are called as nigrothalamic fibers. These are connections of the substantia nigra. Okay, let's understand it a little bit again. From caudate nucleus, lentiform nucleus, fibers which are strio-nigral fibers carrying GABA inhibit the substantia nigra. From the substantia nigra to caudate nucleus, fibers are nigrostriate fibers carrying dopamine, inhibit the caudate nucleus and lentiform nucleus. So they are mutually inhibitory. There is a reason why I am repeating this. Remain alert. They are mutually inhibitory to each other. So how does substantia nigra function? It regulates voluntary movement by integrating signals from the cortex and basal ganglia. Basal ganglia are these nuclei that you just saw. Okay, so it helps to regulate the speed and amplitude of movement and coordination through basal ganglia circuitry. Basically, it has a inhibitory influence on the motor activity. Okay, so these corpus striatum has tendency to cause very wild movements. So it suppresses the corpus striatum, causing our movements to be smooth and modulated. Okay. Now let's it also produces and releases dopamine, a neurotransmitter which is essential for smooth movement. So what happens in Parkinsonism? You've seen the circuitry. What exactly happens in Parkinsonism? Let's understand that. You can see that substantia nigra is showing a lesion. So what will happen? So these fibers which are carrying dopamine are no longer carrying dopamine. Caudate nucleus is no longer inhibited. Okay. So what happens? A lesion in substantia nigra results in reduced dopamine, which would normally suppress the basal ganglia and inhibit the basal ganglia. Reduced dopamine results in lack of inhibition on basal ganglia, right? So what happens? If your basal ganglia are not inhibited, what will happen? Take a look again. This person is suffering from Parkinsonism. What will he have? He will show symptoms of resting tremors, pill rolling movement, lead pipe rigidity, musk-like face, stiff shuffling gait, stooped posture, bradykinesia. Oh my God, ma'am, how are we going to remember this? I don't even know what all this means. Yes. So best thing to do is to understand them a little better. Let's understand. Resting tremors. Imagine that you're sitting in one place and your hand is all the time trembling, all the time trembling, all the time trembling. This is what happens. There's a constant tremor in his or her hand. You have to compare this to intention tremor. In case of a patient with cerebellar lesion, when he goes to pick up the mouse, the hand begins to tremble. Otherwise, it's comfortable. But intention of any action will result in a tremor. Intention tremor. What happens in Parkinsonism? Tremor at rest, resting tremors. Okay. Pill rolling movement. Imagine that you have a little tablet in your hand which you are rolling it all the time, rolling it all the time. This is typically seen in a patient of Parkinsonism. It's a kind of a tremor. It looks like he is rolling a pill in his hand. Pill rolling movement. Cogwheel rigidity. Now this is very interesting. Okay. When you're passively moving the patient's limb, okay, you will find that there is intermittent resistance. So I'm moving the limb, there's resistance and then there is a give. There is resistance and then there is a give. There is resistance and then there is a give. So it's called as cogwheel rigidity. Give rigidity, give rigidity, give rigidity, give rigidity, give rigidity. This is how the patient's movements are broken up into smaller segments. Okay, this is called cogwheel rigidity. Versus clasp knife. When there is tremendous rigidity at one point and then it suddenly gives, and the patient often finds the hand hitting the person's body. This is called clasp knife rigidity. These patients have cogwheel rigidity, not clasp knife. They have cogwheel rigidity. Okay, I'm asking you to compare this so that you have a better understanding. Mask-like face. No expression of joy, no expression of sadness, nothing. Stiff shuffling gait. Now see, this person has got a lot of, motor symptoms, motor stimulus coming down. So what happens is rigidity. So when the person tries to walk, there is this kind of stiff kind of gait. Okay. The person is stooped, gait is slow, slowly the person is moving forward. Okay. Because the joints are very rigid. What happens is this person not only has this shuffling gait, but he doesn't know how to stop. He can't stop even if he wants to. Sometimes he goes and hits a wall to stop because he cannot stop. Sometimes he breaks into a little run because he cannot stop. His limbs are stiff, but he doesn't know how to stop. Okay. So, bradykinesia, the difficulty in initiating movements, difficulty in terminating the movements. So, now have you got a general idea of all the symptoms I told you, what they mean? My way of doing this would be to practice this. Okay, stand up, stoop a little bit. Okay, get your hand to tremor. Have a pill rolling movement going on. Begin to do this slow shuffling kind of a gait forward. If you do this once, you're never going to forget what are the symptoms of Parkinsonism. Try it out. I had done this in my class once for my students, and being young students, they all broke into a big applause. Wow, ma'am, you're good at acting. No, I'm not good at acting. I'm good at teaching. I made sure that that moment stayed in their mind and they forever remembered what is Parkinsonism. So I have a request to you, do this action. You will never forget what are the symptoms of Parkinsonism. So one last time, resting tremors, pill rolling movements, lead pipe or cogwheel rigidity, mask-like face, stiff shuffling gait, stooped posture and bradykinesia. You will never forget if you do this once as a form of an acting. Maybe you can do this for some of your classmates, but do it. So, summary of today's lecture, we basically focused our attention on crus cerebri and substantia nigra. Okay, we started a diagram. We took a section at the level of inferior colliculus and a section at the level of superior colliculus. We understood this parts of midbrain, tectum, cerebral peduncle, and so on. Then we understood what are the fibers in crus cerebri, what is substantia nigra and parts of substantia nigra. And finally, we ended it with a discussion on Parkinsonism. I hope you enjoyed this lecture. I hope you understood this lecture. Remember, Parkinsonism is a condition we are seeing more and more often today. So you have to understand midbrain to understand Parkinsonism well. And then I'll see you across the screen in the next video, which will be a section at the level of inferior colliculus. Bye. Thank you.